So Expressions believes there that Wiegman could make that crossover from the ladies' team, the Lionesses, to the men's team. Could you see something like that happening? I mean, Robbie was saying he didn't want to take any credit away. He just doesn't really see it. But how do you see that one, Jamie?
I think it's overdue. I think there's some quality female managers in general. You look at people like Emma Hayes at Chelsea, who's absolute class. I mean, if Sarina Wiegman is gonna, I mean, she deserves a statue if she goes and wins this tomorrow morning. So
back to back, that would be.
Yeah, that'd be back to back. Like England haven't done that before. If we're talking across the board, so I wouldn't be against it. It's just, it'd be interesting to see her ideas, see what she can bring to the role. You've seen the way that English football, female football, really, or women's football, I should say, has been exploded in the last few years, and a lot of that's down to her.
I think so. I think you'll see it long before. I think you've seen it even in the NBA at points, and in other sports where you kind of see female coaches get involved. I think you've seen it at a lower league level as well. I think there have been female coaches taking over some men's team. I don't know how mainstream it will become, or how normalised it will become, if that makes sense, because I mean, they will probably dominate the women's game in general as they are, but I think even if you look at it, kind of black coaches and things like that, it's always been for kind of whatever smaller percentage groups there are. Managerial is a ruthless job as it is, like even for these top managers we talk about. So I think there's going to be kind of a sense of that for Emma Hayes. She's kind of thinking, if I'm dominating in the women's game, do I really want to go into kind of the Sharks or the Premier League, if you like, where it could be butchering after 6 months, if you like. Whereas in the women's league, she can go and continue the game and go and be a legend, just continue to grow her legacy. So for me, it all depends on kind of how much you want to challenge yourself as a coach. If you like, I think Emma Hayes is one of those I'm looking at. I'd love to see her kind of challenge herself and see, you know what, maybe I can go and take a championship job. Let me go and throw my hat in the ring. So it'll be how much they want to push themselves, but how much the environment is also willing.
Just on Emma Hayes as well, Tom, was there a period last season where instead of getting in a Frank Lampard to oversee what was an awfully unsuccessful period in the latter stages, would there have been a shout to say, well, actually give Emma Hayes, but then of course you're taking her away from her job?
Yes. I mean, you always get it right, and for those that don't know, I consider myself a fan of Chelsea women as well, as much as the men's team. So, and I run a page that has Chelsea women's social too. So I hear the views of all those fans. And
looking ahead to the final tomorrow, the pressure on her shoulders now to deliver not only a Euros, which she's done, that big tick, home victory as well, being at Wembley, and then you look at the World Cup final, to see America go out, to see France go out. It's now the hosts have gone out in Australia to play Spain in the final. Is this maybe the biggest ever moment for the women's game in the country?
Yes, 100%. You've only got to look, 50, 60 years ago, the ban was only just lifted by the FA on women's football. So the game is still so new in the women's game in general, And I think going into this tournament, no one really expected England to compete as well as they have done because they had so many big injuries. And I think either way, this is like a victory for women's football in this country, 100%. But, we're in the final, let's win it,
Spain are good. Spain are a very good side. There is a kind of revolt against their coach. I think 15 of their players went on strike last summer after the Euros. But and as you say, particularly also based off injuries and our performances in the first sort of 4 or 5 games at the tournament, I'm pretty surprised we've kind of made it to the final. But it's
Lauren James coming back as well.
Absolutely, and I was here watching that. It's credit to all the girls that actually they've found a way. It's been really hard at times against Nigeria. 10 against 10 players for about an hour. Against Colombia, really tough game, but found the goal to win us the game. And then Australia, the host nation, semi-final, national stadium. But we bring it home, particularly after a Sam Kerr screamer. But if you don't mind me going back to the kind of management question you asked earlier, because I find it really fascinating, and it's not the first time that a women's team head coach has been moved over to the men, and it's been successful. So Canada did it. John Herdman, who's now in charge of them, took them to the World Cup for the first time with the men after doing pretty well with the women's team as well. For me, speaking to a lot of fans of the women's game, they tend not to like this debate about women's coaches going into the men's game. I think they see it as a kind of slightly patronising towards the women's game. Yeah. That's the point I often get told, and I think it's important that I raise it, even though I'd be fascinated to see how an Emma Hayes would do in the men's game.
That's what I was saying earlier, with kind of like they would probably want to dominate their field, if that makes sense. Like, after Sarina wins a World Cup, why not be the first females manager to go do back-to-back World Cup? Looking at this England team, you probably could.
Do you think that's a real motivation for her, though?
Why would it not be?
Why would it not
be? For all
the
best managers, it would be.
It would be groundbreaking.
But you look at the men's side for England as well. She could think, I could go win the men's World Cup now as well, you know.
But the pressure that comes with that, you've seen the pressure with Southgate and everything. And for me, it's just like that could potentially then undo all the work that it's like, oh, we knew she couldn't hack it in the men's game. Why does she even bother coming up? She costs us our country's hopes now. And all of that talk comes in. Instead, for me, it's like, you're a legend at what you do right now. You can continue to be groundbreaking. As you said, this World Cup and England winning the Euros and then the World Cup, it's put so much light on the women's game, and it's put so much light on who they are. You're now going to completely take that away and instead put it in the men's game, where the men's
it's bigger and better kind of thing.
Absolutely.
You know.
So for me, it's like to keep raising this women's game, you have to almost keep the greats there. Like even like a Marta now who's going to retire, go and be the Brazil coach. Go and show the new gen of what you want to keep. Almost your legends in where you are. Like I say, the sometimes we get female pundits on like the Barclays Premier Leagues and things like that. Like I love it when sometimes you watch the WSL and it will be an all women's legends cast, and I'm like, right,
this is what we like.
It should be. I'm not trying to see Peter Schmeichel talking about the WSL and all this stuff.
Women in Ultimate Team in FIFA as well, I think is going to, or in the AFC, I think it's going to bring a new generation actual knowledge and interest in the women's game, and that's only a good thing. I feel like people are now going to be able to name female players beyond Sam Kerr and Alessia Russo, for instance, which is nothing but a great thing. But and just kind of a final point on Emma Hayes specifically, and because she has kind of said before, she was linked with the Wimbledon men's job after a manager got sacked maybe a couple of years ago, and she would always say, you know, why would I go from top as the point you made for her, why would I go from the top of the women's game to a far lower level in the men's game? You know, if we're trying to get equality, is that really equal? But then I guess I made the point to the group that surely if we've got male coaches in the women's game, we would all really welcome, you know, female coaches coming into the men's game. So I want to see men and women coaches across both men's and women's football, I guess.
Would you have Emma Hayes as a candidate for one of the Chelsea jobs? If the next time it came up and Emma Hayes threw her hat in the ring?
But I wouldn't want her to move directly from the women to the men. Okay. What I wouldn't want is her to go, my work's done with the women, I'm moving on to bigger and better things. That's not what I want. If, say, she left the women's job, did some national team work perhaps, I know she really likes Spain, actually, incidentally, and was tempted to work on the Spain job.
Yeah.
If she did that, maybe left that, and then there was talk about her perhaps becoming the Chelsea manager, absolutely, but I want Poch to succeed for very many years. So do not have that as a slant on Poch.
For the first time in his career.
It's a really interesting debate though. I really enjoy it because, you know, last 2 or 3 years particularly, I've really gotten into Chelsea women's team, been to games and stuff, and I love it.